80s, probably 1989, 1980, between 87 and 89. And I remember this guy was a guitar collector, and he'd come in every now and then just to shoot the shit, whatever, with the owner of the store and stuff like that. And I talked to him for a bit. And he told me about his prized possession guitar that he had just got. A 1959 Les Paul standard, right? And it was the original one, still sort of so-called in the wrapper. Still had the tags on it, still, all original, whatever. Never played, apparently. He paid $15,000 for that guitar back then. Okay? Now, the thing is that guitar right now would be worth probably $250,000, like if it was exactly as he said. But what are the odds of that being $250,000 right now? Probably pretty low. In fact, he'd probably, at best, probably be able to sell it for about, $4 or $5 right now. So these are things is you have to know when to flog the guitar. But almost every guitar I ever bought, my double neck that I paid $1,200 for, tax and all, I sold for $600. You know what I mean? And I held out for the money. One guitar that I got, my 1992 Epiphone Les Paul standard. That one I paid $360 or $390 with the duty and everything coming back from the States. And I sold it for, I think, $300 here in Canada, after owning it for 13 years, right? And that guitar, again, owed me nothing simply due to the fact that I basically played so many gigs with it that it paid for itself several times over. So, yeah, this idea of buying, you watch, the Trogley, guitar show on YouTube and stuff like that. And that guy buys a guitar and people buy for him at a markup, right? And he makes money flipping guitars. There's very few people that can actually do that. You might be able to do that to a degree, but what people are buying from is they want to buy from him, right? So there's a premium on that. So if he bought this guitar, okay, he'd turn around and probably sell it for maybe a few $100s more than what he paid for it. If he bought that guitar, he'd probably sell it for about $1,000 more than he paid for it. And people would be willing to pay. And this is the whole thing with reverb. The 1987, 1988 Steve Vai floral pattern gem, when that thing came out, I remember playing them in the stores. And the Kramer Night Swan, I'll use those two guitars as an example. I remember playing the original Night Swan, and I bought my Hammer Diablo over the original Night Swan for a lot of reasons. The Hammer was just a better guitar, number one. The pickups setup was better on the Hammer. But other than that, they were pretty comparable guitars in a lot of ways. That guitar back then, I think, was like $1,200 new, the Kramer Night Swan. And I can't remember what the Vi model was going for, but it was well over $1,000 anyway. It was probably about $1,400 or something like that back then in the 1980s, right? And now you see those Vi models in mint condition. They go for anywhere from a couple of $100 right up to like several thousand, like $10,000, right, for a premium one. And the Kramer Night Swans, they were going for like $1,900 to $2,000 plus, and then bang, Kramer reissues the Night Swan. So anybody that was hanging on to that guitar, watching the investment go up, bang, now, oh, you got an old 80s one? I'm not going to buy that. I can go and buy a brand new one. And say, oh yeah, but the 80s one was so much better, blah, blah, blah. I don't know about that. There's not that much difference probably between the original and that. There is some that people have pointed out, like the pickup configuration or choice or whatever. Instead of having a full shred in the bridge, it has just, like 2 JBs or something like that. Okay, little things like that. Okay, whatever. But not enough to make a difference. You know what I mean? And any other details that are like minute, like again, not enough to make a difference. So to say one is better than the other, I don't think so. And most people would prefer to have the newer guitar. So if you're buying a guitar and you're like, okay, well, I wonder how much I can be able to sell it for in the future, don't buy that guitar because you're looking at it the wrong way. You have to buy a guitar with the idea you bought it, it's yours, and you're never going to be able to sell it. If you can sell it, you're never going to get anywhere near what you want for it. And if you're one of those, I got to sell it quickly, you'll definitely lose money. Um, you could get, like you could get lucky and end up with a guitar like uh, that, maybe gets owned by somebody famous and you find out and it goes up in value that way. Like if you have one of Jimi Hendrix guitars, sure. Randy Rhoads guitars, an actual RR3 that Randy Rhoads owned. Like if you think about how influential Randy Rhoads is, his guitars didn't sell for that nearly what you'd think they would have, under $10,000. You know what I mean? Like for such, you know what I mean? Because that's what the people were willing to pay. Jimi Hendrix, like what's one of his guitars go for? You know what I mean? Noel Gallagher's 90s Epiphone Les Paul Standard, like I had, it went for $130,000 because the announcement of Oasis getting back together and stuff like that. And, and then he had a Flying V and it went for like even less, way less, like a couple of $1,000, more than what the guitar was worth new, but way less than $130,000. So that's a gamble. When you hear those stories, never get caught up on those stories, because the average guy is going to, if he can get a quarter, or if you can get half of what the guitar is new, right? Half of what the guitar is new, you're doing good. You're doing phenomenal. You're lucky if you get a quarter, you know what I mean? Of what the guitar is new. And so if you're buying guitars that are several thousands of dollars, like a Gibson Custom Shop or something like that, just understand you're probably it's going to depreciate like a Honda Civic. You know what I mean? It will probably balance out somewhere. But now if you're buying the things used, let's say you buy an SG61 reissue for $1,000 used, and you hang on to it for a decade and it goes up to $1,500 or $2,500. Yeah, sure. You can make money doing that, but you got to know what you're buying, and it's still a gamble. Guys, if you're a collector, I understand that, but most people are not collectors. And if you're buying the cheap guitars thinking they're going to go up in value, they don't. They really don't. They got to be something, significant. You know what I mean? You can, antiquity does account for, it's like violins. Violins are even worse when it comes to like, what's a violin worth? I've got violins that are over 200 years old, and I've paid very little for them. I've got, I see violins that are, built today worth tens and, $100,000. And it's like, why is it worth $100,000? Because the guy said so, and the guy that buys it, right? He's going to buy it, and it's not going to be any better or any worse than any other regular run of the mill violin. It's just, it goes into the hands of a virtuoso. And then suddenly when he goes to sell it, he gets a markup on it because my hands touched it, right? But the average person's grubby hands like mine is not going to increase the value of these guitars whatsoever. So just be mindful of what you're buying and don't get caught up in the I'm not dissing on the Trogley show or whatever, but that's a very rare. Very few people can flip guitars and make a living at it. Guys in guitar shops. Selling used gear and stuff like that, those guys usually don't get rich, because they have to get the guitar for like maybe 10% of what it was worth new so that they could sell it for maybe 15% of what it was worth new, you know what I mean? Plus tax, right? So you got $1,000 guitar, he's got to get it for $100 to sell it for 150, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff, or maybe 200. And that's reality. That's reality. I mean, yeah, you could get it and say, okay, I want half price is new, but it might sit in the shop for 6 months, a year. You know what I mean? And when it comes to music gear, it has to move to make money. It's all about the velocity of money, right? New guitars, there's enough of a profit margin on most of the guitars. I don't know what the average profit margin would be, but I can imagine they probably aim for, 25%. Or whatever. So you buy $1,000 guitar, they get 25% of that, of profit. So there's all that kind of stuff to consider. But if you're buying guitars, buy them for the long term. Buy them so you don't buy as many. I know I'm one to speak, but I do flip my stuff up every now and then. Like I get rid of it knowing that I'm not going to get the money that I put into it, right? But a lot of times, by the time I get rid of a guitar, it's paid for itself several times through playing live shows. Now these days, I unfortunately not playing live anywhere as much as I would love to. I'd love to be solely a musician um, for a living, but it's not easy in this day and age. We live in a very antisocial age, and I live in the countryside, so it's not easy to get together with people. And my vehicles are unreliable, and you get the idea. But the thing is that my guitar collections I'm very, very happy of that I have now, and I will buy more guitars. Right, I might flog a few. I'm probably going to get rid of the cheaper guitars, just because I'm also one of those guys. After you buy your first beginner guitar, live with it for as long as you could tolerate, and save up for something really good. So you're not just jumping from cheap guitar to cheap guitar. And by cheap guitar, I'm not necessarily talking price. And I get it. Not everybody has the kind of money to throw at like this. This collection has taken me quite a few years to get to. So and the last piece of equipment that I have to pay off is the drum kit, which is going to be paid off in the next 3 months. And that's pretty good. I still got other equipment I want to get, like a really good top quality bass. So I have an inexpensive bass, an inexpensive guitar, and a whole bunch of really good guitars and stuff like that. And I might buy a couple, like say more guitars later on, but there's no rush. And I might upgrade the drum kit later on, no rush. But there's other instruments I want to buy, like a keyboard and stuff like that. But I also want to start investing in going to the recording studios with these fantastic guitars. It's fun to record here at home, but I really need a place where it's professional, so you can get that professionals, so you can really hear what these things can do, and work on the songwriting and all that. And that's my goal for 2025.